Growing up in Africa, in a family that many people would consider below average, without a lot of exposure to the outside world, but now having gotten myself to a level that many people do consider successful, there are a lot of things that I wish I had known when I was younger. A lot of things that I believe if I had been exposed to earlier would have made my path way quicker. I would have become successful quicker. But luckily, either by accident or through working hard or by God's grace, I've actually come to experience this thing, and you now have the opportunity to learn these things and ensure that your life is changed at a much earlier age than I am right now at 31. A lot of the things that I've done have actually put me ahead of my peers in very many aspects. Whether it is financially, I've managed to make way more money than a lot of people that I studied with, that a lot of people who are in my age group. Whether it is happiness, I've actually managed to attain a lot of happiness. I mean, I quit my job at the age of 28, quit being a doctor, forget about any other job. These are jobs that people aspire to, especially when you're in Africa. Everyone looks at someone who is a doctor as someone who is successful. For me, I didn't draw happiness from it, and I was bold enough to quit it and just pursue the kinds of things that I want. I've managed to get a huge following of people who enjoy the content that I make. A lot of people who have learned, a lot of people who have been inspired by the YouTube channels that I've made. This kind of success in different aspects of life hasn't just come as a mistake. It has come as an intentional path of me doing particular thing that I believe have brought me to this point and can take you to the point that you want. First, time is the most valuable asset you have. You see, you can always make a lot of other things. You can always make more money. You can always do more work. You can always do a lot of other things, but you cannot create time. So when I learned that, I then learned to prioritize the things that are valuable to me. You see, because time cannot be remade, you need to make sure that you're very intentional about how you utilize your time. Don't let your years pass you by. You don't want to look down the road 5 years, 10 years down the road, and you're looking at yourself and you're like, what the hell did I use my time for? Make sure that you're very intentional about your time. Don't let your time flip you by. If you want to work and you want to make money, then make sure that you're utilizing your time to make money. Don't look back a year later and you're like, well, I didn't make any money and I just spent time. If you want to enjoy, if you want to play games and have fun, make sure that you're utilizing the time to have fun. Don't look back and you're thinking to yourself, well, I just wasted time and I didn't have fun. Make sure that your time is very, very intentional. For me, particularly when I learned that, especially in my most recent years in life, I then made sure that I prioritize my time to do the things that I either love or the things that I enjoy to do. When I learned this, then I understood the whole idea of hiring people to do the things that I don't love. If I have work that I don't enjoy, I would rather get someone, hire that person, give them money to do it, and then I'll be left with time to either spend with my friends, time to spend with my family, time that I do value, time to maybe do the other things that I love, or time to do the things that bring me more money, instead of just wasting my time sitting there doing things that I don't enjoy, doing things that are very little worth to me, time that I will never recover. Next up is use your free time to develop a very valuable skill. Now, I personally, when I was free, when I was younger, I used to utilize my time to do the things that I love. I wasn't intentional about developing a skill until a little bit later on when I was in my late teenage years. But luckily enough, the things that I was actually interested in were things that were actually going to be turning out to be valuable skills. For example, I utilized my free time to learn Spanish. I can speak Spanish at an okay level. You understand? I can go to a Spanish-speaking country and I won't need a translator. So because of that, one of the biggest breakthroughs that came through in my life was simply because I could speak Spanish. Because of that, I got an opportunity to meet someone who exposed me to a lot of the outside world. And this exposure to a lot of the outside world actually flipped my mind open and enabled me to see possibilities. Another thing that I actually utilized in my free time was graphic designing when I was still at the university. For me, it was simply a thing of fun, and I was telling telling myself, well, let me just learn these things because I love art. So I would get my computer, play around with Photoshop, play around with other programs. And just like that, these have turned out to be very important skills, especially for this YouTube channel. When you see me editing thumbnails, even for the businesses that I've done, for designing posters, designing things that can attract clients to the business. So it has turned out to be a very valuable skill that has actually brought a lot of money into my pocket. So if you can utilize your time to develop valuable skills, skills like how to sell, how to market, these are skills that will never change and they will always be very, very important. Skills like using Microsoft Excel, understanding how to use Microsoft Excel. These are skills, whether it's 2030, 2040, these are still going to be very, very important skills. It doesn't matter the world that you're in. So utilize your time to develop these skills. Next up is don't waste time hating people. You see, the thing about hating people is when you hate people, you're feeling the pain alone. They don't care about the pain that you're feeling. They're actually moving on and living their lives. I'm personally the kind of person who does not hate on people. And when someone does something bad to me, I just ignore it and well, life moves on. Of course, at the beginning, I will hate, but with time, I'll just forget about it and move on. And a lot of times, people will come to me and they will tell me, hey, do you remember something that you did to me or something that I did to you? And I'll tell them genuinely, I don't remember anything. And they'll be so surprised because they have been bitter or they've been unhappy thinking that I hate them when I personally didn't care at all. I just moved on with my life. So imagine you're spending your emotions, you're spending your time, you're spending a lot of your effort hating on someone and someone doesn't even notice that they're being hated on. They're just moving on with their lives. You are actually losing a lot of time, you're losing a lot of your emotional strength hating people instead of doing things that can be valuable to you. The fourth is the earlier you start to save, the better it is for you. You see, in my recent years, I have understood the value of saving. I wish I had started this earlier. You see, there are very many things you can use savings for. One of them is, of course, towards your retirement. It's very important that you save for your retirement. Very, very important because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. But the other thing is you can put money aside for investment and for the crazy days, the rainy days, the days when you lose your job, the days when your car maybe gets an accident and you need to repair it or you need to get another car and you really can't survive without a car. You need to make sure that you save for such days. I personally have gotten a lot of business opportunities recently and I have only been able to take them up because I've made savings. If I didn't have this savings, these opportunities would have come to me. Someone comes to me and they're like, oh, I have this awesome piece of land that I'm ready to sell. Are you willing to buy? I'm like, okay, cool, let's negotiate on the price. Only because I do have the money, only because I have managed to save. So when you save in your life and start doing it as early as possible, it doesn't matter how much money you save. That's the most important thing, yeah? It doesn't matter. It's about getting into the habit. Just get a percentage in your life, whether it's 5%, 10%. Tell yourself that I'm going to save 10% of whatever I earn. If you're earning $100, save 10%. If you're earning $500, save 10%. That's what, $50, yeah? You might think to yourself, well, $50 is nothing. It is something because it's all about getting into the habit of putting money aside because you don't know what that money is going to turn out to be of use to you. Trust me, the idea is it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get opportunities come your way and the only thing that can enable you grasp them is money. So put money aside. Next up is take full responsibility of your life. You see, I've personally met a lot of people who believe in the saying, que sera, sera. That means that whatever will be, will be. I believe that's a very pathetic mentality to live by. A lot of people believe that things just happen to them and they are ready to move with whatever happens to you. The problem with having such a mentality in your life is that then you lose control about things that you could actually influence. You don't believe in having results in your life that actually affect by you. A lot of people think about this because they don't want to take responsibility of the negative things that happen in their life. Usually, when good things happen in their life, they'll actually take responsibility. But when negative things happen in their life, they don't want to take responsibility. So what do they say? Whatever will be, will be. No, it's not whatever will be, will be. Of course, there are things that are out of your control. For example, the fact that you lose your mom or the fact that your child gets an accident. Those are things out of your control. But how you respond to them is completely in your control, and how you respond to them is going to determine so much about how your life turns out. So make sure that you take full responsibility of each and everything in your life. Taking responsibility of things in your life gives you control. It ensures that you have the most positive results that you can get, because if, for example, you lose your mom, there are a lot of things that can happen to you. You can either choose to get depressed and in the end commit suicide, and so you leave your family without anyone to take care of them, or you can choose to understand that that's what happens in life. People lose parents. A lot of people have lost parents before, and you're not going to let this break you down. It's actually going to give you more courage to work harder and try to make sure you live a more satisfied life than your mom, and hence you're going to actually have a better life because your mom died. So take full responsibility of your life. Next up is do not compare yourself to others. You see, when you compare yourself to others, you're comparing yourself to people on a race that you have no idea about. It's the biggest thief of joy. It's like finding someone who is running on the side of the road. You've probably been running your race. You're probably running a 10-kilometer race. And while you're running, you'll probably run it at a slower pace. You notice someone bypassing you, running way faster than you. What do you decide to do? You decide to run quicker. You don't know that that person is only running half a kilometer. And by the time you get to the end of the road, half a kilometer later, you're very tired. That person has finished their race. You're still running. You still have maybe 8 kilometers to go, and you're completely tired. Why? Because you're running someone else's race. So do not ever compare yourself to others. Everyone has their own goals. Everyone has their own vision, and let your vision be the one that you implement in your life. Compare yourself against your goals, against your vision, against the things that satisfy you and not what other people live by. Next up is you do not have to win every argument. Sometimes you have to agree to disagree. There is no goal, there is no purpose to winning every argument. Why? Because it's useless. You win the argument and then what? You're just wasting time. You're not going to influence someone else. Actually, in reality, someone is more likely to respect your opinion. Someone is more likely to follow what you think if you just agree with them. Someone is even more likely to ponder and think about what you've been talking about if you agree to disagree with them, compared to if you just decide to argue through the point. Yeah, there is no need of always winning every argument. Everyone has a different way of saying things, and it's okay. It's just always okay. And next up, everything in life is subjective. There are very few objectives in life. That is one thing that I've personally taken up that has enabled me live in peace and not struggle so much to understand the points of views of other people or to let them influence how I live my life. You see, the thing about life is that everyone will see something from a completely different perspective. How much value someone attaches, for example, to a particular car will be different from how much value another person attaches to it. I personally love vintage cars, and I might spend a lot of money buying a vintage car. Someone else will come and look at my vintage car and they're like, why are you wasting money on a vintage car? Why? Why are you wasting money on a vintage car? Well, it's because I personally love vintage cars, you understand? So if someone then takes away my joy because I'm spending a lot of money on a vintage car, then it's really crap. So understand that in life, everything is subjective. What you like, someone else won't like. What someone else likes, you will like. What you value, someone else won't value. You should not let things separate you because you're not always on the same page, because everything means something different to another person. Understand that and move on. Yeah, move on. If someone, for example, comes and says that your children are the dumbest children in the entire world, it's okay. Let them say that. They have their reason for saying that, and it's from their perspective. They probably measure cleverness from performance in class, and maybe your children don't perform the best in class. But we all know that intelligence can be measured in very many different ways. They might not be the very best performers in class because class measures things a particular way, but then there is another path. For example, they are very gifted musically and they can do so well at music, and for them that's a gift that could actually earn them millions and trillions and keep them happy. So don't tie to one perspective. Everything in life is subjective, and don't let other people's views drive you crazy. 9 is always stay sober. I personally have interacted with a lot of friends, and trust me, I have a lot of friends who, for example, take alcohol, who do drugs, who take cigarettes. I also have a lot of friends who don't do any of those things. I personally chose not to do those things. Why? Because I have found out that the value of staying sober is so important. Now, I know a lot of successful people who actually take alcohol, a lot of successful people who, do drugs, but I also know way more successful people who don't do any of these things. People I've rubbed shoulders with, and every time I interact with them, one of the things they consistently tell me is, son, never take alcohol. Why? It's because they have seen a lot of their colleagues either go down the drain or be influenced negatively by some of these things that take away your sense of thought, things that flood your thinking and ensure that you don't think properly. These are things that can actually lead to your downfall. So ensure that you always stay sober. Keep away from alcohol if you can. And yes, you can. Why not? Number 10 is always be gentle with ladies. Now, this of course is going towards the men. You need to understand that women have estrogen and they don't have testosterone like the men. So you can't handle them like you're handling men. You should never shout at women. You should not slap or physically abuse a woman. It's really stupid and it shows a very low level of thinking. It's like me walking up to Arnold Schwarzenegger and trying to fight him, at the top of his career. The guy had a huge physique, and it would be very stupid of him to actually try and fight me, because if he boxed me just a single punch, I would literally be down on the ground. You understand? So you need to understand some of these things. You should not shout, you should not be violent. You should handle women gently because they are ladies, they are not men. Next is take time to meditate. You see, the best ideas I've personally gotten in my life have come through meditation. Times when I sit alone, away from everyone else, whether it's at the beach or inside my house, and just ponder upon life and meditate and energize myself and visualize and see the different perspectives of things. You need to make sure that you consistently get some time off to spend alone and meditate. Ponder upon the different things that happen in your life. You shouldn't let your life consistently be an upbeat life. There are a lot of people, especially when you're growing up, you'll just find yourself in activity after activity. You're moving from work, then you're going to a party, then you're coming back, you're drunk, you sleep, wake up in the morning, get back to work, go for a movie. You never have time to sit down and think and ponder upon things. This time that you actually utilize to ponder upon things can actually bring a lot of ideas into your life, a lot of useful ideas, because during this time you see things more clearly and you're very intentional about the things that you think about, and you can have the very best results during this time. Hard times can either kill you or make you stronger. You choose. I've been referring to a mother's death a lot in the video because I personally have lost my mom, and during this time this is probably one of the hardest times that I've ever went through, because I had goals, I had dreams, I had visions, I had a lot of things that I wanted to do for my mom. I've actually made a video about this because I believe it taught me a lot of lessons, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description. But during this hard time, I could have chosen to get sad and depressed and not move on. I read a lot of stories during that time of people who have been depressed, many of them gone into proper depression and they need to go to a mental ward and get treatment, and many of them actually committed suicide. But I also read about people who went through these times and utilized this time to make themselves stronger, learn from it, and change their lives. I personally chose to be on the latter side. So the hard times will always come. That's what you need to understand. But it's up to you to ensure that you go through them and they keep you stronger, or you break and that will be the end of you. 13 is always pay your debts. You see, it's very important that if you get a debt, you pay it back. Now, I don't only talk about debts in terms of debts, but even promises. You must always keep your promise. You must always keep your word. You need to make sure that you attach a lot of value to your word. Now, this is something that I learned when I was way younger. I probably should have been maybe 12 when I learned this, that if you keep your word, then more people can trust you. And when people trust you, they can then work with you. Impactful people, great people, they can then work with you to ensure that you have the very best results in your life. So pay your debts, consistently pay your debts. If you borrow from the banks, if you borrow from friends, if you tell someone something, make sure that you do it. Keep your word, because people hold you to your word. If people consistently notice that when you say something you don't fulfill it, then they will never ever take your word, and once your words become useless, then you're useless. business, because what are you going to be using? You're going to be using words to negotiate. You're going to be using words to propose. You need to make sure that you hold your word valuable. 14 is be gentle on yourself. You see, at a particular point, I reached a time when I was pushing myself too much. I was pushing myself too much. I was working so much, and if something bad happened, I would really terrorize myself because I'm trying to take full responsibility of everything in my life. But it's good for you to understand that bad things actually happen. Bad things happen even if you put in as much effort as you can, and sometimes you just need to let things slip. Understand that something really bad has happened. There's a time I went into a deal and I was trying to, buy something, and then someone just disappeared with $3,000 of my money. Now, this is when I just started working, and for me, $3,000 is something that I was holding in high regard at that time. At the beginning, I was beating myself up. I was like, hey, you've lost $3,000. You're foolish, you're stupid. How can they rob you like this? But a little later on, I snapped into my, proper mind, and I was telling myself, what am I doing? I'm being too harsh on myself. Let me utilize this, take it as a lesson, and ensure that it doesn't happen in the future. These are things that happen not only to me, but to other people, and I shouldn't let this kill me and break me. 15 is what others think of you is none of your business. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people recently, a lot of young people have been drawn into the line of being influenced by what others think of them. How do you care? You personally look at yourself. What you think about someone else, has that moved someone else? Has that made that person do something else? Do they even know what you think about them? You understand? Maybe you've told them, but you've noticed that it hasn't impacted them at all. So why are you letting what others think of you actually influence your life? So if you learn to separate what others think of you from who you are, it will ensure that you make huge steps in your life. When you're thinking about making a particular decision, you're only thinking about it for the very best results that it will bring you, and not what others will think of you. What others think of you is their issue. Whether they like you or not, it should not matter. What should matter is that what you're doing is best for you, it's best for your community, it's the best for those that you love, and it brings you happiness. Next up is always yield to God. I've met a lot of people who break because they don't have the strength and the belief that there is someone taking care of them. Personally, I've gotten to a lot of points which a lot of people would call breaking points. But knowing that there's someone more superior, there are things that are out of my control. There's someone more superior, someone who cares about me, someone who loves me, someone, a force, a being who has my best intentions at heart and can actually flip things around, has actually comforted me so much. It has influenced my life so much, and there are a lot of things, positive things, things that have actually come out of my life, things that have caused me to change the way I think about life, the way I think about my community, things that have made me more benevolent, things that have made me more giving, all because I understand the love of God, the love of someone who is superior than me, and I yield to that love. I pray, I spend time praying, spend time meditating, asking God for protection, asking God for favor, asking God for comfort, asking God for strength in times that are hard. 17 is look after your health. You see, it's very easy to pay too much attention to success and actually lose yourself and lose your health. In the end, the most important thing is your life. If you don't have your life, then you have nothing. If you read stories of all the richest people who have made a lot of money, when they are sick and they're on their sick bed, the one thing that they will always ask for is health. They wish they would have health. They can make more money, but you can't make more health. So take care of yourself. Don't let your body go out of control. Stop using drugs, stop using alcohol, stop taking cigarettes, because these things are going to break down your life. Don't let your weight go out of control. Try to impact yourself as much as possible. Spend time, go to the gym, eat healthy food. Ensure that you're consistently healthy so that you don't lose yourself, you don't lose your life simply because you didn't take good care of your health. Next up is fight with your brain and not with your hands. You see, I've met a lot of people who actually turn out to be physical when they come to fight. That's why you have a lot of murders, a lot of assault recently, because people are trying to fight with their hands. No, it's of no use. utilize your brain. If you utilize your brain to fight, it will ensure that you move 10 steps ahead. Things that you can only move 1 step ahead physically, if you only move with your brain, you would move 10 steps ahead. So always take the fight to your brain. If someone doesn't like you, how can you win them? Using your brain. Not using physical fights, not hiring someone to assassinate them, not stealing from them. Ensure that you consistently fight with your brain and not with your hands. And finally, and probably one of the most important, this is one that I actually discovered recently. Enjoy the journey and don't just wait for the very end. You see, in life, we can always work towards something, but you can never ever be satisfied. We'll always have goals. But what usually happens is that once it's in your reach, then you're looking at something that's further. And so the joy generally disappears because we are consistently trying to get joy from achieving particular things. But in reality, we never achieve particular things because once we get close to them, then we have something else in our sight. So why not enjoy the journey? The path on the way there should be the things that bring you satisfaction. I personally, for example, spent a lot of my time on the farm and farming. I chose to enjoy the farming activities and not the vision of how much money I can make from the farm, because that will consistently keep growing. When I want $10,000, then next month I'll want 100,000, and the next month I'll want $1 million. But if I choose to enjoy the activities, working with the guys on the farm, feeding the animals, making the feed, making sure the farm is organized, it's clean. These things are the everyday things that are done on the farm, and I will consistently find joy from them, unlike trying to find joy from things that I might never attain, because every time I get closer to them, they move further away. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.